Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I would like to invite you along as we explore the healing and transformative world of Rebecca Lefebvre's nature-inspired oracle decks. We'll begin our journey together today with the illumination cards of the Fauna Inspiration deck, then dive deep into the restorative cards of the Flora healing, and finally tap into the manifestation cards of the Fantastical Being deck. These Earth-conscious decks have been printed on recycled paper, certified by the Rainforest Alliance program, and meets EPA guidelines. Each card features illustrations by Phoebe Hunt, with words in watercolor by our deck's creator, Rebecca Lefebvre. We begin our journey of self-awareness in communion with the 57 animal guides of the Fauna Inspiration cards. Rebecca notes that this deck gently introduces concepts about your humanness for contemplation and illumination. Getting inspired means coming to conscious awareness about your values and life plans. It also includes reconciling your patterns, belief, and present activities. So here we have the Fauna Inspiration Nature-Inspired Illumination cards. The Bee for partnership, Bull for perseverance, Cardinal for authenticity, Dragonfly for peace, Firefly for illumination, Fox for ingenuity, Horse for passion, Lion for leadership, Peacock for triumph, Scorpion for protection, Snake for release, Bat for matrix of self, Chickadee for tenacity, Cicada for surrender, Eagle for reverence, Flamingo for consideration, Hawk for clarity, Heron for self-reliance, Owl for transformation, Pelican for optimism, Squirrel for necessity, Swan for love, Coral for community, Crab for courage, Dolphin for pure of heart, Octopus for reveal, Otter for pleasure, Penguin for commitment, Seahorse for contentment, Sea Star for sensation, Sea Turtle for serenity, Shark for resolve, Stingray for assertiveness, Whale for pneuma, Badger for manifestation, Bear for nurturing, Buffalo for connection, Elephant for gentleness, Koala for wisdom, Moose for presence, Mouse for confidence, Puma for action, Rabbit for abundance, Stag for vitality, Wolf for instinct, Beaver for motivation, Camel for endurance, Frog for cleansing, Hummingbird for reflection, Pig for prosperity, Polar bear for camouflage, Raccoon for exploration, Raven for truth, Salamander for adaptability, Snail for patience, Spider for resourcefulness, and Turtle for duality. Our journey continues with the work of restoration guided by the 57 plant allies of the Flora healing cards. Rebecca reminds us that healing requires a willingness to reflect on the narratives you have accumulated over the years and looking closely at the things that inhibit your growth. The Flora healing deck includes questions, prompting you to reconcile the things you have been holding on to and those you could release. Here we have our floral healing, nature-inspired restorative cards. We have Arnica for quiet rest, Bleeding Heart for wise energy, Calla Lily for achievement, Chanterelle for immunity, Clover for enhancing, Daffodil for self-love, Daisy for variety, Dandelion for become, Forget-me-not for carry with you, Foxglove for convincing, Goldenrod to make whole, Calendula for unity, Chamomile for panacea, Coreopsis for lighthearted, Crocus for begin, Dianthus for know your limits, Iris for heart, Milkweed for rescue, Ranunculus for purpose, Sunflower for respond, Violet for awaken, Yucca for channel, Aloe vera for restore, Bee balm for center prune, Cactus for reserves, Elderberry for relief, Fern for repel, Ginkgo for stability, Hyacinth for waves, Hydrangea for absorb, Lavender for tranquility, Lily for whirl, Sage for cleanse, Yarrow for homeostasis, Cornflower for self-sow, Delphinium for amend, Garlic for subterranean, Indian pipe for ephemeral, Juniper for expansiveness, Lotus for in the bog, Mint for footing, Pitcher plant for convergent, Poppy for nourishment, Sedum for discomfort, Tulip for attention, Cattail for acceptance, Donkey for inflorescence, Echinacea for possibility, Hibiscus for stages, Holly for truth, Honeysuckle for climb, Moonflower for unfold, Orchid for symbiosis, Passion flower for seed leaf, Rose for heirlooms, Pterylium for self-care, and Wisteria for decelerate. After illumination and restoration, we begin our transformation guided by the 57 creatures of the Fantastic Being deck. Rebecca notes that this deck offers encouragement crafted to help you manifest those dormant life goals. Transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it can be easier than you think when you believe in yourself, trust your instincts, and commit to your growth. Here we have our Fantastic Being nature-inspired manifestation cards. We have Anemone for letting go, Halatress Massey for crystal clear, Kimono Dragon for powerful, Jackalope for portmanteau, Lava Star for activate, Loch Ness Monster for curiosity, Lotus Tree for fulfillment, Manatee for heart center, Ouroboros for infinity, Phoenix for ignite, Tardigrade for defiance, Baobab for perspective, Blue Glaucus for exposed, Cedar Waxwing for breathe, Comet for celestial, Dragon Blood Tree for attuned, Epiphytes for harmony, Fairy for mysticism, Gruidae for risk, Monarch Butterfly for transformation, the Moon for attraction, the Stars for aspirations, the Anglerfish for adaptation, Oxalotl for regeneration, Fata Morgana for illusion, Flying Fish for rise above, Leafy Sea Dragon for navigate, Mermaid for believe, Narwhal for simplify, Nautilus for balance, Platypus for evolution, Rainforest for reciprocity, Sand Dollar for intertidal, Willow for grace, Chrysalis for senescence, Cyanobacteria for rhythms, Gaia for creation, Green Man for flourish, Griffin for be bold, Horseshoe Crab for dig in, Langur for leap of faith, Pangolin for protection, Praying Mantis for captivating, Sequoia for living, Stone Circle for commune, Bigfoot for imagination, Blue-footed booby for different, Elements for complete, Human for fantastic being, Luna Moth for in a flash, Moai for voyage, Pegasus for wellspring, Scarab for self-creation, Sloth for comfort, Sphinx for awe and wonder, Tree of Life for we are one, and Unicorn for magic. Rebecca has also released each of these beautiful decks in a mini version. These pocket-sized decks contain the same beautiful illustrated images as their larger siblings and are accompanied by thoughtful messages on the back of each card. These decks are perfect for cultivating conscious awareness, healing, and transformation on the go. So now that we've had a chance to look at the cards in each of the decks, I do want to talk a little bit about this cardstock because it is really unique to this deck. As I mentioned, it is an eco-friendly cardstock. It is Rainforest Alliance approved, and it basically feels like watercolor paper. So there is no coating on this deck or any of these decks. It's just the beautiful paper feel, which just gives it kind of this really lovely impression of holding 57 unique works of art. And that really adds a wonderful kind of sense of uniqueness to this deck. Not just in the terms that I don't think I have another deck that has this similar cardstock to it. So it's a very unique feel to Rebecca's decks, but it does feel like holding an original work of art in your hands, which is just really cool. So let's go ahead and give these a shuffle because, as I mentioned, I don't have any other decks that have this kind of cardstock, so I'm curious to see how they shuffle. And as you can see here, I am riffle shuffling them and they are shuffling beautifully. There is no stickiness. The cards have a really nice flex and bend to them, but they're not super thin. They do feel like they are a sort of heftier kind of watercolory cardstock type of paper. So they do have a nice heft to them, but they riffle shuffle beautifully. I'm also just curious. They do overhand nicely. I'm not really getting any sticking, but they are making that lovely, can you hear this? That lovely paper sound. So I really want to do a kind of sample reading using each of these 3 decks. So I have the Fauna Inspiration, which we're going to use for a card of illumination. Then I have the Flora Healing, which I need to go ahead and give a shuffle as well. Oh, those just shuffle beautifully. It has a feeling of kind of working with an old deck in a really good way, like something that is timeless and has a lot of great energy and wisdom to it. That's really how these decks kind of feel. So we have the Flora Healing for our restoration cards, our Fauna for our illumination cards, and then we're going to be using our Fantastic Being for our transformation cards. So I am going to basically create a 3-card reading, which is one of my absolute favorite types of readings to do, using each of these decks. And we're going to see what needs to be illuminated, where we need some restoration and some healing, and what action, what transformative action we can take to accomplish that. So we're going to pull a Fauna Inspiration for what needs to be illuminated. So we're getting Mouse. And let's bring out our Flora Healing for where we can find that restorative energy. And we have Violet. So we'll take a look at each of them here in a moment. And then we have our Fantastic Being cards for what transformative energy we can tap into. And we have the Leafy Sea Dragon. Okay, look at these together. How beautiful is that? So we have our card of illumination, our card of restoration, and our card of transformation. So let's go ahead and flip these over and see what they have to say. So for our illumination, what needs to be illuminated, we have Mouse for confidence. It says sometimes the smallest animals can teach us the biggest lessons. Often depicted as meek and timid, Mouse is nothing of the sort. She is clever, sensible, and assertive. Enterprising and spunky, she defies limiting expectation. Either unaware or uninterested in fulfilling inaccurate assumptions, she makes her own way wherever she goes. Mouse teaches us that even the least suspecting fauna has great capacity. All it takes is self-confidence and an ability to remain calm and trust oneself. So that's what we're bringing into illumination, that idea of having some confidence about ourselves, of not being limited by other people's expectations. I think that's a beautiful card. So let's see what our card of restoration has to say. We have Violet for awakening. It says, at birth, we are still part of the divine, born with no conception of what may lie before us and only aware of the moment we are in. Just as the sun, moon, and stars are celestial bodies, so too is our spirit. We are ultimately good, but soon our essence relinquishes this connection. Molded by norms and expectations, we travel for years in unconscious awareness. Gliding through time, we collect debris on our wings. Standing in the rain, walking in the desert, and caressed by the breeze, we are reminded that we are one. Like Violet in spring, where can you go and what can you do to reconnect with the divine, detoxify your spirit, and awaken your positive light and energy? This is reminding us that when we tap into that oneness and we reconnect with the divine, we will find confidence there as well. We remember our innate energy, and that will bring us confidence. So where can we find that transformative energy? In the Leafy Sea Dragon with Navigate. So setting a course is simple. Navigating is another story. Slowly but surely, doubts, distractions, and deception will invade your mind. But like the Leafy Sea Dragon, you have the aptitude to acquire the skills, tools and knowledge you need to protect your convictions and right your way. When someone or something obstructs you, or when challenges are insurmountable, sit down and map out your desired destination. Break each step into micro tasks and set your goals. Before you know it, you will be there. So we have this idea of illuminating our confidence with the little mouse energy. We're awakening to that connectedness with violet and navigating, using that to navigate our path with the leafy sea dragon. I think that's really beautiful. It's really a wonderful, I think, kind of self-care, self-reflective reading that I think you could really do with these 3 decks combined. So I've pulled out my copy of the Gentle Tarot, which is the deck that I've been working with all throughout the month. I feel like this has a really compatible energy to the Flora, Fauna, and Fantastical Being decks. I'm really kind of curious to see how they pair together. It also is the deck that's sitting on my desk, so it was at hand to grab, but I do feel like these decks will go really well together. So we're going to take a look at these 2 decks together. I have the Fauna Inspiration here in the middle, working as my focal point, and my Gentle Tarot around it for that expanded message. So here we have the peacock. Let's see what the peacock's keyword is. Peacock reminds us of life's glory. He symbolizes confidence and encourages us to embrace every moment in life. So we're looking at this particular card, the peacock, and that expanded message through the lens of the Gentle Tarot with the Wheel of Fortune and the 10 of Wands. Really stepping into and embodying those energies. I think that's beautiful. So I'm not going to go through and read all of these cards because we would be here forever if I did that, but I do love this idea of tying in the sort of illumination card as that central point. Here we have our camel for endurance. What is that energy trying to tell us? It is sitting here between the 5 of Cups and the Harvest of Wands. Beautiful. Here we have our pelican with optimism between Judgment and the Empress. That's beautiful, isn't it? Pelican encourages us to enthusiastically forge through life, resting momentarily only to embrace it in earnest once again. I think that's a gorgeous card to sit between Judgment and the Empress. See, here we have our bee between the 2 of Wands and the 9 of Cups. That's quite powerful for partnership. With gentle persistence, bee nurtures our spirit, rallies our heart, and prompts us to drink from the elixir of life. How beautiful is that with our 9 of Cups? Okay, now let's take a look at it with our Flora healing cards. So this is bringing the message of restorative energy of healing. So where do we need to find healing, or what energy can we tap into for that healing? In our center position, here's our focal point. We have Sunflower for respond. And I do love that on the Flora healing cards, we do have prompts. We have questions at the end. So you could definitely use those to help you dive deeper into your readings. So it says, to explore how you and or others regard you, ask a few trusted advisors for feedback about your presence, approach, and disposition. What do you expect to hear? Do you think you will be surprised, and how might you respond? That's it. Interesting card of looking at our responses in terms of the Seed of Cups here, which would be our Page of Cups, and our 10 of Thunder, which would be our 10 of Swords. So interesting to look, how do you respond in these types of situations, and how do you see yourself versus how others see you? I think that's really gorgeous. I do think that aesthetically these decks do work quite well together, but I am definitely more looking at this not so much from an aesthetic or what looks good on the table, but more tapping into the idea of the messages of these decks and what they bring out of each other. So here we have our Forget-Me-Not with Carry With You between our 7 of Cups and the Emperor. So this is a card about the things that we carry with us. And are those things that are nurturing our soul, or are those things that are weighing us down? So it's a card that's asking you to examine your shortcomings, identify your blockers, and to take personal responsibility. Interesting sitting here between the 7 of Cups and the Emperor. Really about kind of getting clear about what it is that you want and then taking action on that, really stepping into your own personal power. So this is a beautiful combination here with our 9 of Thunder and the Moon with our crocus in between for begin. It says coming out of hibernation, rising from sleep, and daring to test the terrain is enough to consider retreat. Journeys are wrought with work, but packaged in possibility. What real and perceived obstacles are laid out before you? How beautiful is this between the Nine of Thunder and the Moon? The Moon is often a card about the things that we don't see, right? What's lingering beneath the surface. That can be an energy that we use when we tap into the Moon card. And the Nine of Thunder is that Nine of Swords energy. So all of that mental energy, what obstacles, what perceived obstacles might you be needing to uncover? All right, and one last pairing here. Let's take a look at the Gentle Tarot paired with the Fantastic Being deck. So these are our cards of transformation. So we have the Ouroboros in between the Hanging Woman and the Flower of Cups. So here we have our Ouroboros with infinity. It says on and on it goes until we reach the end, which makes a new start. Why fight the inevitable? Within your imperfection, resiliency will find you. Be brave, be bold, begin again. I love this in combination with the Hanging Woman because the Ouroboros is, that continual circle. And we get that idea of the Hanging Woman. She's swinging back and forth, which is a continual motion, right? You can keep swinging for as long as you keep pushing your body. And I love this kind of idea of tapping into the energy of the Flower of Cups here, kind of getting deep and going with the natural ebb and flow, that back and forth of our own emotions. And in that, we can find the braveness and the boldness to begin again. I love that message. I think that's gorgeous. So here we have our lotus tree with the transformation of fulfillment between our Eight of Cups and the Lovers. That's really interesting. So when we permit the world to devise our life, our wishes remain unrealized. To attain fulfillment, get to know who you are and take action. So I love this idea with the Eight of Cups because you're leaving behind, right? We're moving on to something else in order to get that fulfillment that we're looking for, to get through the rest of the cup suit to that realization of emotional understanding. We need to tap into who we are, and we could look at that from a duality perspective. And I think that that's really interesting. Just kind of a different take on it. Really beautiful. So here we have our stone circle with commune between the Six of Wands and the Six of Stones. Lots of sixes here in this particular reading. Says, give thanks for what you have, find fellowship in its embrace. You are surrounded by love. I love this idea with the sixes because the sixes are the 3 plus the 3. We have growth upon growth, which is going to bring us full circle again. And I think that's a beautiful idea that we can see represented here through these cards. So really gorgeous decks that Rebecca has created here. I love the fact that each one kind of has its own theme, its own energy. Each one definitely has its own purpose and things that you could use it for. You can definitely just use one deck and focus in on that particular energy. As we saw, it does pair well with a tarot deck as well. Or we could use each deck providing its own sort of energy and position and message in a reading. You could probably also mix them all together and create one big oracle that really blends that idea of illumination, restoration, and transformation all together in one. I will probably keep mine separate because I could see using these separately to kind of hone in on certain energies that you want to cultivate and certain practices that you want to dive deep into. So if we're really looking at what do we want to illuminate, what do we want to bring to light within our lives, we can focus in on those Fauna Inspiration cards. If we're really looking to tap into some healing energy and work on some growth and self-love, I think that the Flora healing cards will work beautifully for that. And then, of course, we have the beautiful transformation cards represented through the Fantastic Being deck, and those really give us some great action steps. So yeah, 3 beautiful decks that I think could be used in a variety of different ways. Of course, I think they're beautifully illustrated and gorgeously painted. I do really like the cardstock, but I love that each one has its kind of own unique voice, its own unique purpose, and I think that they do work beautifully together, but would make excellent oracle decks separately as well. It has been an honor and a pleasure to journey through these decks for contemplation, healing, and transformation. I want to thank Rebecca for sending me these decks to share with you today. I would love to know your thoughts on these nature-inspired decks, so please feel free to share with me in the comments below. Thank you for joining me today. You'll find links for everything featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.